Hello all. So today we are finishing up the last part of chapter 10, Pedagogy, and it's actually part 3. So we're talking about assessment and accountability today. So with that, the standards-based movement has had significant influence on educational programs across all content areas, including physical education. As discussed previously, the physical education curriculum had to change from a busy, happy-good philosophy to programs that emphasize student learning. Although making changes to goals, objectives, and instructional processes was critical, standards and instruction meant very little without knowing what students know or are able to do. Assessment is the salient component needed to measure whether students have learned and are achieving the national standards. Furthermore, assessment holds physical education programs and teachers accountable for student achievement. Connecting the standards, instruction, and assessment components of physical education curricula and units of instruction is referred to as instructional alignment. With even just one of the components excluded in this alignment, physical education programs and lessons lack purpose and meaning. Assessment can be implemented at the beginning of or during a unit of instruction. That would be formative. Or at the end of a unit, which is called summative. Formative assessments are true to their name. They inform teachers whether students are learning and giving them an indication of how to plan upcoming lessons for students to achieve the unit goals and objectives. This is something Dr. Bonnet does with his special POPs classes. He'll test students at the beginning of the semester on all that they might know about special populations. And then, of course, you're testing every week. Those are more of your formative, and then at the very end, you may have a final that is it's comprehensive and over all of the material. Summative assessments inform teachers and students about what students have learned over the course of the unit and are usually associated with a grade. In the past, teachers conducted assessments such as skills tests, fitness tests, and written tests to measure students' knowledge and performance. Today, physical education teachers implement assessments that are performance-based, which are used to measure higher levels of student learning while engaging in a meaningful or worthwhile task. Teachers do not have to conduct all assessments, as they can educate students on how to conduct peer and self-assessments. Performance-based assessments include observations or checklists, much like what we did with our walking assessment. That was an assessment. The rubrics that we use, the journals and portfolios. Speaking of, I'm not sure how we're going to do that this go around. We'll have to talk about it. Essays and role-playing exercises, as well as projects and game performance. Formative assessment is typically implemented at the beginning or during a unit of instruction. It informs teachers and students whether students are learning and suggests how to plan upcoming lessons for students to achieve the unit goals and objectives. Summative assessments, on the other hand, are implemented at the end of a unit of instruction and informs the students and teachers what students have learned over the course of the unit. Usually these are equated with a grade, and performance-based assessment measures higher levels of student learning, specifically students' understanding of concepts and the ability to apply knowledge. Teachers continuously observe students' behaviors, performance, and behaviors during physical education classes. Oftentimes, teachers provide students with feedback based on critical elements of skills and tactics or strategies that occur within gameplay. Teachers frequently make adjustments or think on their feet based on what they observe, deviating from the daily lesson plan. Without question, observation is important in physical education. However, it is even more critical that teachers document their observations in regard to student learning and performance. Checklists are an example of how teachers can document students' ability to perform the critical elements of specified skills. It allows teachers to assess performance systematically, which holds the teachers along with the students accountable for student learning and is more objective versus subjective than, you have your favorite student. And so relating that into terms that that you can see. Students can also use checklists to conduct peer and self-assessments. Checklists can assess content taught within a variety of curriculum models. Rubrics are frequently used by teachers as criteria to assess the student's knowledge and performance. Rubrics are based on descriptors of various levels, including competent, which is performing at the level teachers want all students to achieve, or exceeding expectations, performing at a higher level than competency, and not meeting expectations or competency. Some teachers use developing or acceptable and target as their different levels. Effective rubrics can include detailed descriptors that make it clear how each level is differentiated from the next. For example, if a teacher uses a rubric to assess students' offensive skills in a game of basketball, and part of the criteria for competency is that students need to successfully complete 2 out of 3 passes. Exceeding or target would be 3 out of 3 passes, and not meeting or developing would be less than 2 out of 3 passes. If the criterion simply stated successful, would 1 out of 3 be considered competent? The challenge for physical education teachers who develop their own rubrics is establishing the competent or acceptable level. This needs to be something that's determined by the Shape America and state standards of performance outcomes for each grade and level, as well as knowledge of their students' abilities. Rubrics can be used to assess student portfolios and projects and role-playing exercises. As with checklists, teachers can employ rubrics to assess content taught with a variety of curriculum models. Journals are another great method of gathering information on students' thoughts, feelings, and cognitive knowledge and about specific activities and experiences that they have in physical education. Journals can be completed on a simple piece of paper, in a notebook or folder, on the computer, or by electronic recording. Journals are best used as a formative assessment since it would be difficult to assign a grade to students' thoughts and feelings unless specific criteria were provided for the journal entries. Journals are particularly used to assess Shape America Standards 4 and 5, which focus on students' personal and social responsibility in valuing physical activity, especially in the PSRM, Adventure Education and Outdoor Education Cultural Studies model. Assessing game performance is imperative when teaching sport and game units, particularly at the middle and high school levels, because gameplay provides students an opportunity to apply the skill and knowledge and tactics they learn throughout the unit. Because gameplay is faster paced than isolated skill practices, assessing students' offensive and defensive skills and movements or teamwork can be rather challenging. In units where students implement the sport education or TGFU or TGM curriculum models, the game performance assessment instrument can be used to assess student base position, decision making, or skill execution, support for teammates, and possession of the ball. Teachers can select several of the components out of the 7 to assess students' game performance based on the unit of instruction. For example, skill execution and decision making can be assessed in all sports and games within the game's classification system. However, support for teammates and possession of the ball is important in invasion games such as soccer or basketball, but not in golf. Teaching can be defined as those interactions and the learner that make learning more successful, although it is possible for learning to occur without a teacher's involvement. It is generally accepted that teachers facilitate the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Effective teachers use a variety of pedagogical skills and strategies to ensure that their students are appropriately engaged in relevant activities a high percentage of the time, hold high expectations and positive expectations for their students, and create and maintain a classroom climate that is warm and nurturing. Salient teacher behaviors can be divided into several broad areas, such as organization, communication, instruction, motivation, and human relations. These characteristics are common to effective teachers, regardless of the skill to be learned, the age of the students, or the setting in which the teaching occurs. Organizational skills are all very important for establishing the learning environment and facilitating student involvement in activities. The manner in which the teacher structures instruction is of major importance. To be effective, a teacher must ensure that the lesson to be presented relates to the stated objectives, meets the needs of the individual learners, and is sequential in a logical manner. Through efficient and thorough planning, effective teachers minimize transition time, or that time to move students from place to place, and management time, which is time used for tasks such as taking attendance. Lessons are planned to ensure that students receive maximum opportunities to practice relevant skills and experience success. Actively supervising and monitoring student performance and providing students with appropriate feedback are characteristics of successful teachers. Skilled teachers bring each lesson to an end by summarizing what has been accomplished and by providing students with an assessment of their progress toward the stated objectives. So one of the things, not taking attendance at the beginning. That's one of the reasons I have used like the discussions that helps in taking attendance. And oftentimes teachers will have students work on some a behavior or an activity, and they're checking as students are coming in for a class. Communication skills are also needed by the teacher to include verbal and nonverbal expressive skills, written competencies, and the ability to use various media. Effective verbal communication skills are essential in the teaching process. The ability to speak clearly and project one's voice in a pleasing manner is important. Other attributes of a successful teacher are the ability to give clear, precise directions and explanations, to use terminology and vocabulary that's appropriate to the activity and the level of the learners. The teacher's ability to use questions to elicit student input, to promote student involvement, and to clarify student understanding of the material being presented enhances the effectiveness of the learning process, such as the use of eye contact, smiles, and high fives. Through their verbal and nonverbal behaviors, effective teachers model the kinds of behaviors they wish their students to exhibit, such as interest in and enjoyment of the activity and respect for other people's opinions and needs. One of the things that I have learned is your coach's voice. It's important to be able to project your voice, and you want to maintain people's attention. So changing the levels of your voice and just being excited about the topic at hand is something that's important. You guys may have had lectures that the guy was going on and was monotone. The one, Ferris Bueller, is one that you have a tendency to think about most of all. Written communication skills are also essential, especially in the planning and evaluation phases of teaching. Teachers who possess effective written communication skills are able to express themselves clearly. The ability to communicate with supervisors, participants, parents, and community members will help to establish a more successful program. Expertise in the use of various instructional media and technology contributes to a teacher's effectiveness, such as the having to learn how to do PowerPoints via YouTube or whatever it is, being able to record your PowerPoints and Prezis and Microsoft Word and Excel. Using those types of programs to present information to students is an important skill. Increasingly, technology is being incorporated into teaching. The internet, handheld devices, fitness tools, apps, fitness watches with GPS, heart rate monitors, pedometers, and other heart rate monitors can enhance student learning. Computerized equipment such as TriFit and FitnessGram can facilitate assessment of student fitness. And incorporating media and technology in student learning activities can contribute to the accomplishment of instructional goals and objectives as well. Competency in a variety of instructional skills is essential for effective teaching. When planning lessons for students, effective teachers use their knowledge of the content to be taught in conjunction with instructional objectives and students' needs to provide appropriate experiences leading to the attainment of stated goals. Effective teaching requires the ability to sequence movement tasks by increasing difficulty and complexity as students progress, and by providing opportunities for students to develop and apply skills. So when a baseball player is learning to bat, usually you start at the tee, and then you make it a little bit more complex by adding in a pitch. So again, sequencing and making sure that things are progressing. Good teachers not only must be able to implement planned experiences effectively, but also be flexible. so that they can appropriately modify planned experiences to suit the needs of the students and situations that arise within the effective learning environment. Effective teachers are able to maintain an orderly, productive learning environment, handling discipline problems appropriately while encouraging and providing opportunities for students to learn responsibility and to be accountable for their actions. A wide variety of teaching methods and instructional strategies are judiciously employed to maximize students' active and successful engagement in relevant tasks. The ability to present clear expectations and offer accurate demonstrations contributes to learning. Effective teachers actively monitor their students' performances and are concerned about the quality of their efforts. Teachers are aware of and capably respond to the myriad of events that occur within the instructional environment. This quality is called with-itness and is often described as having eyes in the back of one's head. Evaluation skills are also important. Teachers must be able to observe and analyze student performance, focusing on the critical elements in relation to the goals, with feedback, reinforcing or modifying responses as necessary. The communication of high expectations for each student is also important. Teachers should hold high expectations for student learning and behavior. Positive expectations, including the belief that all students are capable of learning and are important in establishing a warm, nurturing classroom climate and a productive learning environment. Motivation, the ability to motivate students to perform their potential, is the goal of every teacher. Skillful teachers use a variety of teaching techniques to stimulate interest and participation and seek creative techniques to involve students in the learning process. They also use appropriate reinforcement techniques to maintain student involvement and promote a high level of student effort. These may include checklists, contracts, award systems, and verbal and nonverbal feedback. Praise is used thoughtfully. It is contingent on the correct performance, specific in its nature and intent, and sincere. Successful teachers continually update their lessons in an effort to meet students' needs and to make the material relevant and challenging. Effective teachers possess superior human relations skills. They relate to students and accept and treat them as individuals. They strive to instill in each student a sense of self-worth. Effective teachers show concern for the well-being of each student in their class and endeavor to provide students with opportunities that will enhance their self-confidence. The ability to establish and maintain rapport with students and staff and a readiness to acknowledge their own mistakes are also characteristics that many successful teachers possess. A sense of humor is a welcome attribute as well. One thing I really enjoy about teaching, and one thing I pride myself on, is trying to get to know all of my students and find out what it is that makes them tick, and I try to link them up with their internships that they will enjoy, that they have a passion for. In summary, effective teachers are able to successfully utilize a variety of skills pertaining to organization, communication, instruction, motivation, and human relations. However, effective teaching requires more than these skills. It requires the ability to accurately assess the needs of the moment and tailor the skills to the specific context and situation. Although many of these skills appear to be innate in certain individuals, all of them can be developed or improved who desire to become effective teachers. In physical education, most often the teachers are the center of the instructional process.